Welcome, my friends. You are on Mav's Coffee Clarity with Denise DiGregoli. Every week, we're spilling the beans. We're a show designed to help you move forward in work, love, and life. Who doesn't need that? If you just found me, welcome. And if you're a regular, thanks and welcome back. This is where I interview some fascinating people, mavericks in their own right, all walks of life, from known to unknown, entrepreneurs to creatives, performers, athletes, forward-thinking people who found the silver lining in their fiasco, and they're sharing their beans here. Okay, and we're laughing along the way. We're unedited, authentic. It's like eavesdropping in on a coffee conversation. Coffee with a friend, my friends. Oh, is that like a double entendre? All right, we start the show with a Maverick Mindful Minute. So, coming out of the fashion industry, we lost a great this week. Iris Apfel, 102 years old. Now, I don't know if you guys know her. Look her up if you don't. But she was a maverick in her own right, a fashion icon. But what I love about her is that she actually worked with her husband for over 50 years. So I think there's hope for me, okay? Beyond that, she would say, live boldly, live with a curious mind, a growth mindset. And I can't say enough about that. We cut ourselves short by letting other people's opinions censor us. She was the oldest model at 97 years old to receive a modeling contract. Never mind having her textiles in the White House for years, writing novels, and she just passed. And why I bring her up today is because that's what we're all about. Here we've been roasting ageism on Mav's Coffee Clarity. It's like all ages are important. Listen, friends, if you're 16 or you're 160, we all matter. So Mav's Mindful Minute is this. Just be bold like Iris. Just self-express. Be creative. Keep an open mindset. And forget about other people's opinions. You know what they say about opinions, right? All right. So today's pod is just incredible. I have an incredible lady joining us, the aggregator of information for transformation. Info to transform you and move you forward. An executive producer at a global ad agency with the moxie, creativity, and resilience like no other. I'm so thankful to have you on the pod. Welcome, Mindy Miller.
Thank you. I didn't know who you were talking about for a second. I'm like, who's coming in?
You, with your incredible story. It's a story of from riches to rags with no leg up and just charting your own path. Like, you know, you can't be any better to have on the pod today after Iris.
Is that an age joke?
No. It wasn't intended that way. Whoops. Not at all. We don't believe in ageism on Mav's Coffee Clarity.
No, I'm a shining example of that.
You are actually, man. I mean, you have transformed your life inside of a couple of years, never mind shed it in a complete self. Now, I know we're always shedding something, but you shed like half a body and you transformed your life and you've got so much good information. So tell our audience a little bit about your backstory.
So backstory, just a regular girl from Pennsylvania by way of New York City to go to college. Met the man that I married at 20.
Oh, you got married young, man.
Yeah. Well, I was in love.
Yeah. I'll do it to you.
Right. Exactly. And just, built a pretty fascinating, big, fun life. Had 2 kids.
You worked with your husband too, correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
in family business?
Sort of. He was in the music business and did a lot of popular jingles and things like that back in the heyday. And not necessarily through him, actually through a friend that we went to college with, got me a job at an ad agency. So because of that, I did kind of follow him into the business he was in to some degree.
Okay.
We were very successful with that. We opened up our own music company. That was very successful, and until it wasn't. Life started happening. We had kids. We moved to the burbs.
This sounds like a Miley Cyrus song right here.
Yeah, seriously.
It was It was successful until it wasn't.
Exactly. Exactly. And I can buy myself flowers.
That's right.
Damn it.
A man is not a plan, sister.
Exactly.
Oh, somebody's going to get mad at me now. No censoring here, please.
Exactly. So I'm just trying to think of how I can finish the rest of this podcast with just lyrics from songs, but my brain's not thinking that quickly. Anyway, it was one of those things that everything started going sideways many, 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 many years before. But, you kind of wish, you hope, you have kids, you feel trapped, you feel like, oh gosh, we can make this work. We've made other things work. But it didn't work. It just kept
Sometimes you tell yourself a story. I'll speak for myself. Oh, it was just me. That must be me. I must be wrong. When in reality, that's how you cover it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it was definitely like a slow unraveling of a sweater, basically. Your favorite sweater, to be honest. I mean, I was crushed. But it was slow, so it didn't feel, it was chronic, not acute, So, anywho.
Well described. Chronic, not acute.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So, and because.
So how many years were you married?
Technically, I'm not divorced, but 30.
Something.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, 30. So anyway, long story short, we did very well financially. We had 2 beautiful, healthy children. I'm sure from the outside looking in, it looked fantastic. It was not. There were parts that were, I'm not going to diminish everything. There were a lot of things that went right.
It was good till it wasn't.
Exactly.
Right.
And, but I don't know, fear, cowardice. I'm not sure, feeling trapped, feeling like I didn't have a choice was
societal pressures.
Exactly. I stayed
what you should be doing.
Exactly.
Like I always say, we don't should on ourselves, but somehow we do.
I was like rotten milk, way past the expiration date.
Oh, that's a visual.
Yeah, and whole milk too. Like
Ew.
Just getting fatter by the second. And and it's so funny. People are
when people see Min on YouTube, she's like a stick figure. So how she where was this other person, this 80-pound extra person you were carrying around?
Right. And probably more because at the end of the day, probably from start to finish. From by the time I got married I probably gained 90 pounds over the course of time. A couple times I kind of got my shit together and was like, okay, I got this.
But we're not, I want to be clear, like we're not weight shaming. For people that want to be whatever weight, it's totally cool. But it was like, that was your add-on. It wasn't like how you were, what you wanted to be. It was something that came to you as a result of being unhappy.
1,000,000%. It was not because this is the way I was built. This is my body chemistry. This is my genetic makeup. So I'm just a bigger person. No. I was a fitness trainer. I was a competitive cheerleader. I was a dancer. This was not that.
Yeah. Some extra things attach themselves to you, mind, body, spirit.
Yes, this was collateral damage to the fact that I couldn't deal with my feelings or didn't know how to deal with my feelings.
Okay.
And
so you decide that, you know what, you're going to feel your feelings, and then what?
Well, it took a long time for me to decide I was going to feel my feelings. I tried occasionally to feel my feelings, but then if it wasn't eating, it was shopping, or if it wasn't shopping, it was something else. And, and finally when we had a reversal of fortune, quite a few deaths in our family.
I'm sorry.
It was just a lot, and finally it was kind of like, wow, I need to go. If I'm going to survive, and this sounds super dramatic, but it was so true. If I'm going to survive life, I have got to make a drastic change. I've got to go on my own. And I've got to figure it out. I have to. It's now or never.
So you had an intuitive knowing, like, I've got to go.
Yes, I felt like I was dying. I felt like I was killing myself slowly.
Right.
One hand was like, "Who cares?" and the other hand was like, "Help me." I was in that place.
So what made you flip the switch and move?
For the first time ever, I gave myself a deadline. I had never given myself a deadline before because I was afraid I would fail.
Right.
I was afraid the deadline would pass and then I'd have to live with that loser guilt, like, oh man. And
So at that point in your life, you didn't allow failure.
Right. I did not.
And I think for our listening audience, so many people are raised with not allowing failure, especially if you're in competitive sports, right? That's not in your repertoire. You're out to win. I know.
You're either first or you're last.
Right.
It's so ridiculous when I think about it now, but that's how I was feeling. And so for the first time ever, 2.5 years ago, I gave myself a deadline. And I know.
You said, listen, itch.
Exactly.
Notice I said itch.
Yes.
You're moving it.
Right.
And then what did your inner self say? Were you scared?
Oh my God. I was sort of like, I was almost on autopilot. Like I couldn't, I felt a little like I was in shock, like but I kept moving forward. I don't know how I did it, to be perfectly honest, to make that big leap. Other than, like I said, I'm very deadline focused. So for me, that worked. But the very, very, very few people that knew that this was in the works, I don't think a couple of them actually thought it would really happen, honestly. And I was right.
So now you move out.
Yeah, so I move out and I take nothing but a suitcase.
You take one suitcase after almost 20, 30 years. You're like, here's my one suitcase.
Mm-hmm. No car.
No car.
My friend had a friend who had a very comfortable one room with a bathroom in her house.
Ego, now I put myself in your shoes. Ego says to me, if I went from this palatial place with cars and vacations and shopping, and I go to my little place with no car, how am I doing? Because in my world, I would be freaking out.
Yes.
I think that's, the shedding is important, but how you get the skin off is another thing.
Well, I think in my case,
yeah,
I didn't want to disrupt, my children were just out of college. Were they both out of college? My son definitely was. My daughter, she was just out of college and still living at home. And I think I didn't want to disrupt anybody like that. Like, again, like I'll suck it up, So I didn't want to disrupt the family. They had their routines, working and this and that, and who's sharing the car. And I didn't want to disrupt it. I didn't want to take anything from anybody. I just wanted my freedom. I just knew that I needed to be alone for the first time in my life to prove to myself, I can do this. I can do this.
When you were growing up, were you always a person of this kind of moxie?
I was. But
then
I lost it.
But this was sort of like your resting rate, even though you lost it. You knew moxie could carry you through.
I think so. I'm the youngest of 4 kids. And by the time I came around, look, my parents were awesome. I'm not trashing my parents, but by that time they were like, yeah, look, we got a party to go to. What are you doing on Friday night? My parents literally bought me a microwave so I didn't starve to death, because microwaves are like the big thing. It was like, the late 70s, and I'd come home and my mother would have a plate with saran wrap in the refrigerator. That was my dinner for 2 days or something like that, because they were out having a good time. They did their
it's common
their time.
Anybody that's more than 2 children be like, I was the 4th or 5th, and I was having a good time.
Exactly. So the good news is I went under the radar. I didn't get caught doing anything because they were doing their own thing. So I always was the type of person who, I could figure it out. I knew I could figure it out. So I think that's another reason it was so hard for me for, I would say, almost 2 decades where I couldn't figure it out.
So somebody clipped your wings, or you clipped your wings. It was a self-induced thing for whatever reason. We fall into those ways. Who doesn't, right? If you're a really dedicated person and you put a family together, you kind of stick with it.
Exactly.
And I think transformation comes whether you like it or not.
Right. And I have to tell you, part of my transformation, and I'll talk about it another time, is taking responsibility. I'm not blaming anybody. Did my ex do things that might have contributed? Of course. It takes more than
it's
two
always
people.
It takes 2.
But my choices were my choices.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to muster up the courage to basically make another choice.
Was he okay with your change in choice?
okay is a relative term. Was he okay? And I'm sure that he was wishing that I would make a different choice. I don't know where that came from, if that was a real ego thing or if it was a real like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know. And it doesn't really matter at this point.
Yeah.
We've worked really hard to keep our family intact and be friends and whatnot. I'm super proud of us.
That's
actually.
awesome. That's awesome. And your kids, I've met them before. They're fabulous.
Thank you.
Really
Thank you.
fabulous kids.
So they take after me. I mean, no,
Yeah.
just kidding.
They do. No, I don't know
kidding.
your spouse. I'm sorry.
No, they're very, very much a combo both of
Okay.
us. Both of us. But
Sometimes we joke on Mav's Coffee Clarity. People, get over it.
And then I get a letter from the lawyer.
Right.
Just kidding. Please cease and desist with your defamation of character. So that's how I actually left. And then I realized that was the easy part.
Yeah.
If you would have told me that leaving would have been the easiest part of the next 2 years, I would have been like, oh, really? But it was the easy part. The hard work started after that.
So now you're out on your own and the hard work starts. What's that look like? Because to our listening audience on the pod, and you can tune into YouTube, Mindy's lost 80 pounds, but you've transformed your life in so many other ways. I mean, you've accelerated your career again. So what'd you do?
Well,
Did you buy it at Walmart?
I ordered it off of Amazon. It was like a Prime special.
You got it 2 days later?
I got it that afternoon.
Oh, hey, you have connections.
Exactly. I wish. Oh my God, I wish. But no, it was. It started with. I think I sat in this room and was kind of in shock. Where I was, the future that I thought that I was going to have was no longer available to me. Everything that
What was the future you thought you were going to have? What'd you leave behind?
it was, it's a
Safety,
whole,
security, material.
safety, security, something that felt, how do I put this? The dream, it's like the dream that you have. It's like, it was really hard for me to come to grips with the fact, even though I knew that ship sailed, it's like, I still was like looking in the harbor. Maybe it's there. Maybe it's coming back. Maybe it's no, So,
it's so good to hear that, for anyone to hear that you can let go of one dream for another.
And let me just say something. As a Buddhist, there are a couple things that I relied heavily on. One was the fact that I knew that from my Buddhist practice that sometimes medicine, something you think is medicine, is poison, and something that you think is poison is actually medicine.
Right.
Sometimes an obstacle is put in your path, not to frustrate you, but to force you down another road.
Right. Firm believer in that. And I'm not a Buddhist.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. It's just food for thought.
Yeah. Good food for thought.
Right. And it really helped me because it was like I had nothing else to grasp a hold of. So I was looking for anything, any sign, and I kept thinking, this can't be it. This can't be it. And, I had already identified myself as a codependent type of person, and was already starting to do research on that. Did a lot of work on reading about recovery, just in general, because it was very apparent to me that one way or another, I didn't deal with my feelings. I was either emotional or I wasn't emotional. But that's not dealing with your feelings, I feel like just.
Are you feeling?
Yes, exactly. I'm grasping for words at the moment. Yes, I had a thought, and now I went into the whole.
But we will not reflect on the fact that it could do anything to do with age, because on Mavs we roast ageism, and we are not doing that. Okay.
Hey, I forgot stuff when I was like 20.
Yeah,
so,
but that was for another reason.
Exactly.
We always have our reason. I always say to my daughter, Ava, is that selective memory, Ave? Like what is happening? I know you remember. I know. Okay, so you've got, what I liked when we talked offline in a pre-show talk, you said, I had to sit with my shit.
Right. So,
and that to me really hit home because busy entrepreneurial person dealing with so many things myself, I fly through things. I think, I felt that, I accomplished that, I understand it functionally, I'm good. But I also realized recently there were things I never really took time to grieve, acknowledge, feel, see. I was just on to the next.
Well, I think all addiction stems from, and when I say addiction, I'm talking food, I'm talking shopping, I'm talking
anything that distracts.
Overscheduling.
Right.
It's not just alcohol and pills and all that kind of stuff that we think of, or gambling. That's certainly on the list. But I think it's because we can't deal with being uncomfortable. We're not comfortable with being uncomfortable. So we're always looking for something to make us not feel uncomfortable, to get that quick dopamine rush.
Right.
And so, people look at me and they'll be like, oh my gosh, are you on Ozempic? It's like, I swear to God, I have a friend who's asked me 3 times. Third time, I'm like, why do you keep asking me that? And she goes, because I don't believe you.
Well, at least she was honest.
Wow. Okay. Like, do you believe me now? She's like, no. I'm like, okay, well, I can't win.
I believe you.
Thank you.
I believe you wholeheartedly because I've been knowing you for a few years and more recently in the past 2 years of your journey, watching you transform very slowly. And what I'm always mesmerized is, how can she do anything that slow? I'm always rushing.
And that is so not but see, part of rushing is not dealing with the uncomfortable feelings too. People overschedule.
I know, Min. That's why I asked you on the show.
Right. Exactly.
My friends listening are like, yeah, she's an overscheduler and an avoider.
Right. Where's that mirror that I'm holding up right now? No, so but people say like, oh my gosh, how'd you lose your weight? And it's like, this is what you see on the outside is just really a reflection of the work I've done on the inside.
Wow, honestly. That's powerful.
Really.
Now that is some spilling the beans.
Right. I mean, because I've lost weight before. It didn't last. I was so insecure that it was going to come back. I was always in fear. It's like, oh, down, whatever.
So what is your confidence now? What is it?
I'll never be out of shape and unhealthy again, unless, out of shape. If I have an injury or something, I can't work out. I guess I'm out of shape, but I will never go back.
So you prioritize yourself.
Definitely. And I prioritize being present to what made me overeat to begin with.
So for the people listening in, eavesdropping in our coffee conversation, what do you want them to know? I want everyone to know that also Mindy's got so much to share. She's coming back for a part 2, and we're going to spill more beans. But before we cut it early this evening on a Sunday night, so we can actually catch up.
So
offline.
We can go eat.
Yes, we can go eat. No, just kidding.
Just kidding.
What do you want to leave our listeners with? Like, give us like your top beans. Like, feel your feelings.
Okay, yeah, 2 things. We have to learn I'll say 3 things.
I like 3.
Okay. So one is that we have to take personal responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care who did what to you, and you might have had some horrible things happen to you from loved ones or strangers or whatever it is, and that's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
You still got to take personal responsibility for how you handle it. You just do.
That's right. I agree.
You just do.
That's one. Number 2.
Number 2 is that you have to start being comfortable in a weird way with being uncomfortable.
That's huge.
And I've got a lot of skill, a lot of tricks for that, from sort of fun, quirky, weird things to like some deep, heavy stuff.
Are you going to tell us one now or tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Oh my God, we got to wait. Okay.
And then the third one is there's a very, very, very big difference between motivation and discipline. Motivation's bullshit. Sorry. It's bullshit.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
and I
bullshit?
learned I never was disciplined my whole life. And it's a game changer.
Tell us discipline, meaning slapping?
No. I mean, when you're motivated to do something,
yeah,
you're motivated. That by very nature of the word, you're motivated, so you're going to do it.
Right.
How long can a person stay motivated? I don't know, a couple weeks or a month, maybe even 3 months. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's not going to keep you consistent because there's going to be days that you don't want to do what you need to do.
Right.
And that's discipline. It's a different muscle. You can be taught it. You can, you practice it. And that's the game changer. That is the game changer.
Wow. Min, are you really coming back tomorrow so we can finish and go to part 2? Because I know you have a lot more to share.
I'd love to.
Well, my friends, you've heard it on Mavs Coffee Clarity with Denise DiGregoli. Thank you, Mindy Miller. Whoopsie. That's right. You've heard it, and I love the word discipline. You see, I caught myself there, right? All right, if you want to learn more about my creative consulting services, visit DeniseDiGregoli.com. Follow us wherever you follow your favorite pods and on YouTube, Mavs Coffee Clarity with Denise. We're helping you move forward, my friends, one bean at a time. Everybody's got their own maverick, and Mindy was our maverick today.